Ever heard a voice that felt too familiar? Not just someone you know, someone you trust, someone you lost. The kind of voice your mind recognizes instantly before you even have time to think. Most people believe fear comes from the unknown, from shadows, from darkness, from things we don't understand. But the truth is much worse. The most terrifying things in this world are the ones you do understand, the ones that know your name, your memories, your past. Because when something sounds real, your brain doesn't question it, it accepts it. And that's how it starts. Not with fear, but with recognition. Tonight, you're going to hear 3 different stories, different people, different places, different situations. But all of them have one thing in common. They heard her. And every single one of them made the same mistake. And they answered. It started with a knock. Soft, slow, almost polite. The kind of knock that doesn't demand attention, but waits for it. Daniel checked the time. 12:43 a.m. My chest tightens when I think about it, because nothing good ever begins at that hour. The house was completely silent before that. No TV, no music, no movement. Just the kind of quiet that makes small sounds feel louder than they are. At first he thought it was nothing. Maybe the wind, maybe pipes, maybe something outside. But deep down, he already knew. Because there's a difference between a random noise and something that feels intentional. And this felt intentional. He stood there, frozen, listening, waiting, hoping it wouldn't happen again. But something about that first knock made one thing clear. It wasn't trying to break in. It was waiting for him to react. The second knock came slower, heavier, more deliberate, like whatever was outside wanted to make sure it was heard. My chest tightens when I think about that moment, because the first knock could have been ignored. The second one couldn't. Daniel turned toward the door, not quickly, not confidently, but slowly, like his body was moving before his mind caught up. Every step toward the door felt wrong, like he was doing something he shouldn't. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when it feels harmless. He stopped a few steps away, close enough to hear clearly, close enough to feel the presence on the other side. Then silence. No movement, no breathing, nothing. And that silence was worse than the knocking, because silence doesn't ask for attention. It forces you to give it. And that's when Daniel realized something. It wasn't trying to scare him. It was trying to pull him closer. Daniel. The voice came softly, almost like a whisper, but clear enough to understand every word. My chest tightens when I think about it, because he didn't need to guess. He knew that voice. Immediately, without hesitation. It was his sister. The same sister who died 2 years ago. Same tone, same warmth, same way she used to say his name when she needed something. There was no distortion, no echo, no sign that anything was wrong. And that's exactly what made it terrifying. Because if it sounded unnatural, he would have stepped back. If it sounded wrong, he would have ignored it. But it didn't. It sounded perfect. And when something sounds perfect, your brain stops questioning it. It starts remembering instead moments, conversations, emotions. And suddenly, you're not standing in front of a door anymore. You're standing in front of a memory. And that's the trap. Daniel didn't move right away because something inside him was trying to resist. Logic told him this wasn't possible, that it couldn't be her, that she was gone. But feeling doesn't care about logic. My chest tightens when I think about that, because feeling is stronger, faster, more convincing. He stepped closer to the door, slowly, carefully, like he was approaching something fragile, something he didn't want to break, because part of him wanted this to be real, wanted her to be there, wanted everything to make sense again. And that's how it works. Not through fear, through hope, through attachment, through the one thing people can't ignore, the possibility that someone they lost might not be gone after all. And in that moment, logic started losing, and feeling started taking control. Daniel, please, open the door. Her voice changed, not drastically, not enough to seem unnatural, but enough to feel heavier. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that Slovo, please, it's an Avipitkovo. It softens everything. It lowers your guard. It makes you feel like you're the one in control, like you're choosing to help. I'm cold, she added quietly. And that's when it became dangerous, because now it wasn't just a voice. It was a situation, a person outside, alone, waiting, needing help. Daniel's hand twitched slightly, not reaching for the handle yet, but closer than before, because when something sounds human, you treat it like it is. And when it asks for help, you feel responsible. That's the trap. It doesn't force you. It gives you a reason, a justification, something that feels right. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't asking to come inside. It was asking him to let it in himself. Daniel didn't open the door, not yet. But he did something worse. He spoke. "Who is it?" he asked. Two simple words, quiet, almost automatic. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's all it takes. Not a decision, not a commitment, and just a response. And the moment those words left his mouth, everything changed. The silence on the other side shifted, subtly, like something had just been confirmed. A pause, then a soft laugh. But it wasn't her laugh, not really. It was close, close enough to feel familiar. But there was something under it, something empty, like it didn't understand why the laugh mattered, only that it should be there. Daniel's chest tightened, because now it wasn't just a voice anymore. It was reacting, adapting, responding back. And in that moment, something became undeniable. He didn't just hear it. He connected with it. "Don't pretend you don't know me." The voice dropped, slightly deeper, slower, more controlled. My chest tightens when I think about it, because the change wasn't obvious, but it was enough to feel wrong. Before, it sounded like his sister asking for help. Now, it sounded like something testing him, pushing him, watching how he reacts. Daniel stepped back slightly, just a small movement, but important, because part of him finally started noticing it, the difference, the shift, the way the words felt heavier now, more deliberate, less emotional. "You heard me," it continued. "I know you did. longer this time, like it was waiting for him to respond again. Daniel didn't speak, didn't move, because now he wasn't just confused, he was uncomfortable. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't trying to convince him anymore. It was trying to control how he reacted next. Daniel's hand moved slowly, almost unconsciously, toward the door handle. My chest tightens when I think about it, because he didn't decide to do it. His body just did. That's what makes it dangerous. Not conscious actions, automatic ones. The ones that happen before you realize it. His fingers hovered just above the handle, close enough to feel the cold metal, close enough to finish it, because part of him still believed, still wanted it to be her, still wanted to open the door and see something that made sense, something real. But another part of him, the part that noticed the shift in her voice, held him back. A feeling, not logic, not a clear thought, just discomfort. Something telling him, this is wrong. And that feeling was the only thing standing between him and a mistake he wouldn't be able to undo. Daniel pulled his hand back, fast, like he touched something hot. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that moment, that small decision, is everything. He didn't open the door, didn't speak again, didn't move closer. And for the first time since it started, he chose not to respond. The silence returned, but this time it felt different, heavier, like something outside had changed, like it wasn't expecting that, wasn't prepared for resistance. Seconds passed, then minutes, and nothing happened. No voice, no knock, no sound, just quiet. And for a brief moment, Daniel thought it was over, that whatever it was had left. But that's the mistake, because silence doesn't mean it's gone. It just means it's thinking, waiting, adjusting. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't done. It was just figuring out what to do next. The next sound didn't come from the door. It came from the wall. A soft scratch, barely noticeable, but clear enough to hear. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that changes everything. That means movement. That means presence. That means it wasn't standing still anymore. Daniel froze, listening, trying to locate where it was coming from. The sound moved slowly, dragging along the surface, like something feeling its way around, exploring. Then a whisper, not at the door, not outside, closer, much closer. Daniel. His chest tightened hard, because now it didn't feel distant anymore. It felt near, like the space between them was gone. And that's when he understood something. Something that made everything worse. It wasn't trying to get in through the door. It was trying to find another way, another angle, another mistake. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't leaving. It was staying until he gave it another chance. Daniel didn't sleep. He couldn't. Because once something like that happens, your mind doesn't turn off. It loops, replays, questions everything. My chest tightens when I think about it, because the night felt endless. Every sound mattered. Every silence felt intentional. He stayed in the same spot for hours, not moving, not speaking, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. And that's what made it worse. Because when something stops suddenly, you don't feel safe. You feel watched. Eventually, light started to appear, faint at first, then stronger. Morning. And just like that, everything changed. The house felt normal again. Quiet, empty, safe, or at least safe enough to move. Daniel finally stepped toward the door, slowly, carefully. And for the first time since it started, he felt like he had control again. But deep down, something didn't feel over. And in that moment, something became undeniable. Whatever comes at night doesn't leave. It just waits for the next one. Daniel opened the door, slowly, expecting something to be there. Anything. But there was nothing. No one. Just an empty hallway. Silent. Still. My chest tightens when I think about it. Because that's the part people don't understand. You expect evidence, signs, something to prove it happened. But there's nothing. No footprints, no shadow, no trace. Just absence. And that makes you question yourself. Was it real? Did you imagine it? Was it just your mind playing tricks on you? Daniel stepped outside, looked around. Everything felt normal. Too normal. Like nothing had ever happened. But when he turned back toward the door, he saw it. Scratches. Long, deep, running across the surface. Not random. Not accidental. Something deliberate. Something forceful. My chest tightened. Because that means one thing. It tried. And it failed. Daniel stared at the scratches for a long time. Longer than he should have. Because once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. My chest tightens when I think about it. Because that's the moment reality shifts. He replayed everything. The knock, the voice, the laugh, the way it changed, and the way it reacted. And suddenly, it all made sense. Not how it worked, but what it wanted. It never forced the door, never tried to break it down. Even the scratches came after he spoke, after he responded, after he acknowledged it. And that's when it hit him. Hard. It didn't need strength. It didn't need access. It needed permission. And he gave it that. Not by opening the door, but by answering. And in that moment, something became undeniable. The door was never the real barrier. He was. The second story didn't start with a knock. It started with a phone call. 3:07 a.m. Unknown number. My chest tightens when I think about it. Because calls at that hour never bring anything good. Mark stared at the screen. Let it ring. Once. And twice. 3 times. Then it stopped. Silence. He exhaled. Relaxed slightly. And that's when it rang again. Same number. Same timing. More persistent. More intentional. He hesitated. Because something felt off. Not wrong. Just targeted. Like it wasn't random. Like it was meant for him. And that feeling, that subtle discomfort, is the first warning people ignore. He answered. Hello? Silence. No background noise. No static. Nothing. My chest tightens when I think about it, because silence on a call means someone is there, listening. Then, a voice. Why didn't you answer earlier? Mark froze, because he knew that voice immediately, without doubt. It was her. The same woman who disappeared a year ago. No explanation, no body, no closure, just gone. And now, she was calling him, Same tone, same calm way of speaking, like nothing had happened, like she never left. And that's what made it dangerous. Because if it sounded broken, he would have hung up. If it sounded strange, he would have questioned it. But it didn't. It sounded exactly right. And when something sounds exactly right, your mind stops asking questions. Mark didn't hang up. That was his mistake. Not answering, not speaking, just staying on the line. My chest tightens when I think about it, because sometimes silence is still a response. Are you there? She asked, soft, patient, like she knew he was listening, and he was, completely focused, trying to understand, trying to find something wrong in her voice. But there was nothing. No hesitation, no glitch, no delay, just perfect conversation. And that's how it works. It doesn't rush. It doesn't force you. It just waits. Lets you stay connected. Lets you get comfortable. Lets your guard drop. Because the longer you listen, the more real it feels. And the more real it feels, the harder it is to walk away. And in that moment, something became undeniable. He didn't need to say anything. He was already involved. She started talking, not asking questions, not explaining anything, just talking about things no one else could know. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's the point where doubt disappears. Private conversations, moments they never shared with anyone, details too small to matter, but too specific to fake. You remember the lake? She said. The night we stayed there too long. Mark's chest tightened, because he did. Every detail. And so did she. The way you said you'd never leave me, she continued. And then you did. Her tone didn't change. Still calm, still controlled, but now it felt personal, targeted, like it wasn't just remembering. It was using those memories, turning them into something else. And that's the danger. Because once something knows your past, it doesn't need to guess. It knows exactly what to say. Come outside, she said. No hesitation, no build-up, just direct. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's when it stops pretending. That's when it becomes a test. I'm waiting for you, she added. And for a moment, everything felt real again, like this was a chance, a second opportunity to see her, to understand what happened, to fix something that was never finished. And that's what makes it dangerous. Not fear. Hope. Hope makes people do things they normally wouldn't. Mark stood up, slowly, phone still in his hand, heart beating faster, because part of him wanted to go, wanted to believe. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It didn't need to force him outside. It just needed to give him a reason to go there himself. Mark walked to the window, each step heavier than the last. But he didn't stop, because once you start moving, it's harder to turn back. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's the moment where everything feels almost normal, like this is something you're supposed to do. He looked outside, streetlights flickering faintly, empty road, no movement, no one there. Where are you? He asked. And that was it, the moment, the mistake, because now he didn't just listen. He responded. Silence. Then her voice again, closer, much closer, behind you. My chest tightens instantly, because that's the line, the point where everything breaks. Mark froze completely, didn't turn, didn't move, because suddenly everything felt wrong. And the call, the voice, the request. It wasn't outside. It was never outside. It was here, close enough to speak, without the phone. And in that moment, something became undeniable. He didn't invite her outside. He invited her in. The third story didn't start with a knock, and it didn't start with a voice. That's what makes it worse. Because this time, there was no warning. My chest tightens when I think about it, because most people expect something obvious, a sound, a presence, a sign. But this time, it was quiet, too quiet. Ethan lived alone, nothing unusual, nothing strange, until small things started to feel off, not wrong enough to notice immediately, just different enough to ignore. And that's how it begins, not with fear, but with subtle change, something slightly out of place, something barely noticeable, something your brain explains away until it can't anymore. And in that moment, something became undeniable. This time, it didn't need to come inside. It was already there. At first, it was nothing. A chair slightly moved, a door not fully closed, objects in places he didn't remember leaving them. My chest tightens when I think about it. And because that's how doubt starts, not with proof, with uncertainty. Ethan blamed himself, memory issues, distraction, stress, all the logical explanations, because accepting something else is harder. Days passed, and it continued, slow, subtle, consistent, not enough to panic, but enough to notice. And that's the trap, because once something becomes routine, you stop reacting to it, and you accept it, normalize it, and that's exactly what it wants, to become part of your reality, without you questioning it. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't trying to scare him. It was trying to blend in. The first real sign came at night. Ethan was lying in bed, half asleep, half aware. That strange state where your mind is quiet, but still listening. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's when you notice things you normally wouldn't. A sound, soft, close, not from another room, not from outside, from behind him. A whisper, barely audible, but clear enough to understand. His name. Ethan. He didn't move, didn't turn, because instinct kicked in before thought. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. The kind of wrong that doesn't need explanation, just reaction. His breathing slowed, heart racing quietly. Because now, he wasn't imagining things anymore. Something was there, close enough to speak, close enough to be heard. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It wasn't observing from a distance. It was right behind him. The next night, he decided to check. Not out of courage, out of necessity. My chest tightens when I think about it. Because once something feels real, you need confirmation. Ethan stood in front of the mirror. Room quiet, lights dim, everything still. He stared at his reflection, trying to see something, anything. At first, nothing. Just himself, normal, unchanged. Then something moved behind him. His chest tightened instantly. A shape, a shadow, standing just outside the reflection's focus. Not clear, not defined, but there, watching, waiting. Ethan froze, didn't turn, because now he understood something. If he turned, he might not see it, and that would be worse, because then he wouldn't know where it was anymore. And in that moment, something became undeniable. Seeing it in the mirror was safer than not seeing it at all. He turned, slowly, carefully, preparing himself. My chest tightens when I think about it, because this is the moment everyone expects something to be there. But there wasn't, and the room was empty, completely. No movement, no shadow, nothing, just silence. And that's worse, because now you don't know where it is. Ethan looked back at the mirror, and there it was again, closer this time, clearer, standing just behind him. My chest tightened hard, because that means one thing. It wasn't bound to space. It wasn't limited. It didn't exist the way normal things do. It appeared where it wanted, when it wanted. And that makes it impossible to predict, impossible to control. And in that moment, something became undeniable. He wasn't looking at it. It was letting him see it. Ethan stopped trying to understand, because logic didn't apply anymore. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's when people break. Not when they see something, when they realize they can't explain it. He stopped moving things back, stopped questioning the changes, stopped reacting, because reacting means acknowledging, and acknowledging means connection. He stayed still, ignored everything in the whispers, the movement, the presence, and slowly it stopped. Not completely, but enough. Enough to feel like it lost interest. And that's when he understood. It wasn't there to hurt him. It wasn't there to attack. It was there to be noticed, to be acknowledged, to be real through him. And in that moment, something became undeniable. The more you react, the more it exists. 3 stories, 3 different people, 3 completely different situations. My chest tightens when I think about it, because on the surface, they don't seem connected. A knock, a call, a presence, but they all end the same way, with a mistake. Not opening the door, not stepping outside, not turning around. The real mistake was responding. Daniel spoke. Mark answered. Ethan looked. Different actions. Same result. Because it doesn't matter how you respond, only that you do. And that's the rule. The one no one explains clearly. The one people learn too late. Don't respond. Not to the voice. Not to the memory. Not to the feeling. Because the moment you do, it stops being outside. It doesn't force its way in. It doesn't break doors. It doesn't chase. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's what makes it different. It waits, patient, silent, observing, learning, and once it finds something important, something emotional, it uses it. A voice you trust, a person you miss, a memory you want back. It doesn't lie, it reflects, gives you exactly what you want to hear. Because the closer it feels to the truth, the easier it is to accept. And acceptance is everything. Because once you accept it, you give it space. And once it has space, it doesn't need anything else. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It doesn't enter your home. It enters your mind. So if it ever happens to you, pay attention. Not to what you see, not to what you hear, but to how it feels. My chest tightens when I think about it, because that's the only real indicator. If it feels too real, too perfect, too familiar, that's when you need to stop. Because real things have flaws. They hesitate. They change. They don't feel exact. But this will. Perfect voice, perfect timing, perfect memory. And that's how it wins. Not by scaring you, but by convincing you. So if you ever hear it, don't answer. If you ever see it, don't look. If you ever feel it, don't react. Because once you do, you're no longer alone. The scariest part isn't that it exists, it's that it doesn't need to hide. My chest tightens when I think about it, because it doesn't attack. It doesn't chase. It doesn't even try to scare you. It just waits until you make the first move, until you speak, until you turn around, until you open something you can't close again. And that's what makes it different. Because by the time you realize what it is, you've already let it in. Not into your house, not into your room, into something much deeper. And once it's there, you don't get rid of it. You just stop noticing it. And in that moment, something became undeniable. It was never trying to enter your world. It was waiting for you to invite it in. Thanks for watching. Now I want you to think about this. If someone you lost called you tonight and sounded exactly like them, would you answer? Or would you stay silent? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, make sure you subscribe, because the next one might be even closer than you think.